Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fallen London. Today we're going to be taking a look at the exceptional story, Aces High. As always, at the start of a new exceptional story, I encourage you to play these yourself, spoilers ahead, become an exceptional friend, play these for yourself, help support Failbetter. Not only do you get access to these stories, you get an extra cards in your deck, more actions, and various other little benefits. And if you enjoy these videos, please leave a like down below, it really does help the channel. But without further ado, let's look at this wheeled shadow. On a stroll through Elderwick, you become aware of a carriage travelling rather slowly behind you. It matches your pace, and when you turn into a side street, it follows. Ready for an attack, you take one final turn into an alley. "Oi!" the driver shouts. "Gamer in the back wants a word." Okay, so we can either unseat the driver. This is an old trick used by kidnappers. Your best countermeasure is to prevent the carriage from moving. Or we can just look in the back. Oh, there can't be more than 4 abductors in a carriage this size. You can handle this. Let's look in the back. You brace yourself to strike first. The door swings open and a fellow with a well-groomed beard leans out. His pipe creates a cloud with a pungent, agricultural tang. "Won't you step up?" he says. "I have a proposition for you." You recognize the man from the social pages. He is the Earl of Awry. His family is embedded at the very heart of society. This conversation is probably worth having. Well, we're not getting kidnapped. You settle down on the plush seat opposite the Earl. "That's better," he says. He takes another puff, observing you at leisure. "You're not quite how I imagined you." Shall I ask what he wants? Comfortable as this carriage is, you have other demands on your time. We can ask why he approached you in particular. Surely any other dashing, indefatigable mastermind would have been just as good. Yeah, we're definitely going with that one. "It's a fair question," the Earl says. "Forgive me if I misrepresent you here. I have asked a few people for a recommendation. I'm told you are the right sort, but you walk along a rougher strata. I'm told you are the right sort, but you walk along a rougher strata. Specifically, thieves, gamblers, murderers, monsters, market traders, and so on. You have survived and prospered by your wits, and yet you are still versed in decorum and discretion. That is the kind of person I require." Okay. "You want?" "To the point," the Earl says. "Good. I want to engage you to provide security at a card tournament. Specifically, a bridge tournament. You'll find the fee quite generous, but frankly, the real reward will probably be the connections you make. The players will be an influential group. A very influential group." The Earl's smoke builds around the carriage interior. You pull the window down a few more inches. Let's clarify what he means by security. Wouldn't a Neddy man in an oversized hat suffice? "Ah, yes." The Earl looks out of the window. "I don't need some sort of brute who checks tickets at the door. I need someone to maintain the integrity of the game itself. Perhaps tournament director would be a more appropriate term. But I have one of those already. Tedious fellow that he is. No, what I need is a roving eye. The kind of person who spots a pickpocket at 50 yards and is capable of breaking their fingers if the situation demands it. I believe you possess both of those skills. Let's refresh our memory on bridge. It's a relatively new game, isn't it? The Earl raises an eyebrow. I suppose the villains you run with prefer games with less scoring and more shouting. Well, Bridge came down from the surface 5 or 6 years ago and has rather taken over the drawing rooms. It's like whist. 4 to a table, you play with a partner and take as many tricks together as you can. But no trump is an option, and the dealer plays their partner's hand, which is exposed after the deal. My right honourable wife prefers that position. He snorts. She can direct her full concentration into talking rather than playing cards. This sounds fantastic. Let's ask about the players. The Earl lets his mouth curl into a smile. You've already guessed this is no ordinary game. Well, our little amateur group has been challenged by gallant aviators. We are to play on an imperial airship high above the city. Can you imagine? The sights, the prestige. He sinks into a reverie. We'd like to win, of course, but that's not the most important thing. Half of us have dissolute sons and daughters who spend their days in bed and their nights in honey dens. A romantic match with a military officer would be just the thing to return some discipline to the family line. And a uniform looks good at the altar. What? Therefore, we want a pleasant social event with no hint of cheating. That's where you come in. The horses whinny outside. I must arrange for the press to attend, the Earl says. Meet me at 4 o'clock tomorrow. The mooring is out by Mrs. Plenty's carnival. You step down and watch the carriage trundle off. You didn't actually agree to the job. Of course. I guess we don't have much of a choice. Let's hide all the Hollomer stuff there, shall we? I guess I have to go to Mrs. Plenty's carnival, so hang on. Let's take a trip. Here it is. Meeting a balloon. The Earl of Awry asked you to meet him at the mooring post behind the carnival. I feel like I'm saying this wrong, and I don't know why. Awry? Awry? It's Awry, isn't it? I've made this mistake before. Well, damn. Just ignore the fact that I was saying it wrong the entire time. The Earl of Awry asked you to meet him at the mooring post behind the carnival. An excitable group gathers here atop the small mound. Some of its younger members wave carnival souvenirs. A journalist from The Magazine, formerly known as the London Magazine, eavesdrops. Pencil tucked behind her ear. I guess we're going to take the job. You spot the Earl in conversation with a stiff gentleman in a morning coat. Behind them, an immense airship rocks the wind. Ah, my lady. Thank you for joining us. This is Mr. Gibbon, the captain's orderly. He'll conduct us on board. I think our party is just about ready. The Earl turns away and begins to do a head count. Do stand still, Eustace, my boy. You are left alone with Mr. Gibbon. Something about his face draws your attention. Well, let's greet the orderly. Frankly, he looks more like a butler. Oh, our society renown gives us a 100% chance of success. Yes, my lady. May I help you with something? The diction is correct, but the words are somehow inappropriate. Just as he becomes distracted, you remember. Lord L. You've seen his name mentioned in Slow Cake's Exceptionals, but not the most recent edition. The fellow has been missing for 7 or 8 years, lost on a voyage east, presumed dead. And now he's here, under a fake name, working as domestic staff for the military. What is going on? He has already moved off, casting a cautious look back in your direction. He opens the doors to the airship, then plants his foot to steady the gangplank. I've discovered a long-lost lord working as a butler. The Earl herds the young nobles towards the gangplank. Somebody throws a half-eaten portion of rubbery lumps into the undergrowth. Let's examine the airship. It might be one of Her Enduring Majesty's finest. You pause to survey the airship. The frame seems sound, with a weathering pattern that indicates it has travelled the gritty heights of the Neath for a month or two. There is no insignia to mark it as Her Majesty's, but perhaps it was outfitted for stealth. You turn your attention to the gondola. It is larger than usual, and thus able to accommodate a rear parlour in which you see 12 or so card tables ready for play. However, the curtains are closed on the front section. Sleeping quarters? Let's board the airship. Something irregular is happening here, although its exact nature is unclear. The simplest way to find out is to accept the air trip. The Earl doesn't seem likely to call the tournament off. This will take us away from London for a while. I've never been on an airship like this, I don't think. The new expansion to Fallen London is all about dirigibles and airships. I have yet to get there. You are the last to cross the gangplank. Mr. Gibbon heaves it in and nods to one of the carnival staff. He unties the mooring lines. As the ground begins to drift away, Mr. Gibbon closes and locks the gondola doors. The young nobles spot a generously stocked bar and gravitate in that direction. The Earl casts an eye over the immaculate card tables, then frowns. See here, Mr. Gibbon. When do we meet our opponents? Are we picking them up elsewhere? For a moment, Mr. Gibbon's stiff facade slips, and you catch a glimpse of abject despair. His lip trembles as he gestures towards the front section of the airship. The interior doors have opened. Your hosts emerge. The Earl's jaw drops. In the centre of the wide doorway stands an ape in violet robes and an ornate golden mask. She is flanked by robust, uniform ape guards who have to hunch their shoulders to fit beneath the gondola ceiling. Behind her, other apes emerge from the gloomy compartment, dressed in attire that may have been fashionable in London 3 years ago. At a quick count, the number of apes almost matches the number of young society nobles. Mr. Gibbon coughs quietly. With a voice like drying tar, he says, "All hail the Empress Barbara II and the most honourable bridge society of the Empire of Hands." Now, I know what the Empire of Hands is because I have played Sunless Seas, and I also encourage you to go and watch that playthrough, but for the people who don't know, the Empire of what? You're not familiar with the institution, but that's a lot of monkeys. After a moment, you remember the lurid Zayla's tales. Captains who made it far enough east across the Z brought back accounts of web-choked spider crags, a port soaked in surface sunlight, and an island group populated by soul-stealing monkeys. These Pentecost apes operate a rather savage social order, where status is conferred by the number of souls one bears, and his personality is shaped by human characteristics of these souls. In the Empire of Hands, power and justice rests in the hands of the highest souled apes. So I can make a respectful gesture. Ape or not, this is apparently an empress. We can laugh. Nobody is going to play bridge with a bunch of apes. Or we can observe silently. An attack could be imminent, and most of these nobles seem to still possess their own souls. I'll make a respectful gesture. Problem with these apes is they could probably rip me in half. There are elaborate books of protocol that describe how one should correctly interact with London's titled peers. They do not, however, contain any material on Pentecost apes. You settle for a gentle but not excessive inclination of the head, coupled with a slight opening of empty palms. You receive no reaction, but perhaps that is a good sign. You hear a loud clatter behind you. The Earl of Awry has staggered backwards and fallen to the floor, knocking over a card table. This is awkward. The Earl sprawls on the ground, staring with wide eyes at the wall of monkeys. We can either wait for him to get up, he's making you look bad in front of the monkeys, this is a heartless choice, or we can help him up, restore some dignity to the old fellow. I am magnanimous, so let's go with that. You step forward and clasp the Earl by his elbow, heaving him back up to his feet. He glances at the young nobles, then grips your shoulders. "We can't play cards with a bunch of apes," he hisses. "There's a journalist here. We'd be a laughing stock for decades. Find us some way out of this." We can suggest a quick exit. Perhaps there's still some time to jump from the balloon. We can suggest that the game is illegal. You remember something from the Admiralty bylaws, or we can suggest simply refusing to play. It's a card game. There is no obligation to play. Let's go with the game may be illegal. I do believe the rules around Pentecost apes are quite strict from what I remember. Yes, that's it. In the name and by the power of Her Enduring Majesty, a trade embargo and quarantine in absolute perpetuity has hereby been declared on the Empire of Hands. You repeat this to the Earl, who repeats it like a judge passing sentence. Did the corner of the Empress's mouth turn up? "Ah, yes," he says. "Naval Regulations, Volume 4. No ship of London is to permit aboard a Pentecost ape without express and prior permission of the Admiralty. But, my lord, this is not a ship of London. This is a ship of the Empire of Hands. The question is whether we will quarantine you." Oh. We can jump. You usher the Earl to the window. The airship has ascended rapidly and drifted a little. All Christ's spire looms beneath, for a likely skewering. In a few minutes you may be able to smash through the roof of the blind helmsman and die on a bed of shattered pint glasses. The Earl looks at his young charges, and then at you. Suicide to avoid a card game? Not really the done thing, is it? Depends how much you don't want to play, my friend. Let's just suggest not playing. The Earl blinks in amazement. Of course. Why didn't I think of that? He addresses the Imperial party. I'm afraid our party will not be playing today. I'm sure we will all wish you well on your journey home. The Empress stares at him for a moment. Then she turns her gaze to Mr. Gibbon. He fishes a slim book from his pocket, without enthusiasm. Rules of Bridge Club, Neath Edition, 1895, by Schmezer Sandringham and McCormack. Rule 17.7.2. When two clubs agree a match at a specified time and venue, if one club fails to appear without proper notification, or appears but declines to play, the match is not considered abandoned, but instead considered forfeit by the club in breach. The Empress slides her gaze back to the Earl. We should prefer to play, of course, but it is your right to forfeit. Very slowly, the journalist reaches behind her ear and fetches her pencil. She flips open a notebook. Well, we're going to shrug. We tried. The Earl must either play the game or forfeit it, and because he brought a journalist, the result will be reported in London. I see no alternative. We have to play and beat them. We'll look bad in the papers, but if the article said we were too cowardly to play, the Earl shakes his head, I'd be straight on the boat to Vanderbilt. Look here, we need you more than ever. We must not lose the match. Watch for cheating. The tension dissipates. The Empress withdraws, and the apes behind her spill into the room, hooting and chattering. The Earl staggers off to a chair as Mr. Gibbon sets up the match boards and coordinates with the Society Tournament Director. With surprising alacrity, the tables are set and the players seated. You examine the boards. The monkeys have names like Mr. Wiggerson and Baroness Crab. The humans bear an assortment of lower society ranks. The decks are shuffled into duplicate pairs so that neither side has the advantage of luck. You study the apes at their tables. All are formally dressed and some wear spectacles. Despite a degree of exuberance, they follow the preparations closely. You'll have to be alert to forms of cheating more subtle than simply eating the bad cards. The tournament director asks if the Earl would like to say a few words. The Earl waves him away with an air of desolation. The first hand begins. It's the first round of 2. You watch the games in progress. The players settle into their new seating arrangements. Okay, well I think this is mostly going to be watchful, so I may swap into my watchful outfit here. I don't know if it's set up to be perfect. I need to redo some of my outfits. Some of them have changed and I need to add stuff to them, but I'm sure it's fine. Right, so we can do a spot check on one table. You don't have the authority to stop play altogether, but you can make yourself a nuisance. You choose a table at which all 4 players, human and ape, fit the descriptor shifty. You concentrate on them, first by watching from wide angles, then by hovering at various corners of the table. It quickly becomes clear that one of the young nobles have several aces concealed up his sleeve. You take him aside and explain the reasons why his plan will not work. Firstly, the position of every card in play is recorded, so duplicates will be immediately noticed. And secondly, his aces come from a deck with a different coloured back. You relieve him of them. An ape pushes back from the table and openly scratches their loins. We can look for sight lines. With the seats arranged correctly, players can glimpse an opponent's hand at an adjacent table, then communicate it to their teammates. Check that. You sketch the table layout as you circumnavigate the room. The tables are square, and the players assigned to north, east, west, and south, although those directions are not literally correct on a rotating airship. It takes some examination before you eventually see it. The tables are arranged around the room in a circular pattern, but each table has an ape perfectly positioned to see the hand of a noble at the next table. Of course, expert players do not expose their cards, but the young nobles do it all the time. As you watch, an ape scrutinizes a noble's hand and emits a series of musical hoots and grunts. At the next table, another ape withdraws the card he was about to play. Hey, the apes are cheating too. Let's watch Mr. Gibbon. Delivering drinks, he has the perfect excuse to move between tables. Is he passing information? You match your own movements to that of Mr. Gibbon. By rotating around the parlour at the opposite edge, you can keep him in sight whilst appearing to watch tables. In fact, Mr. Gibbon says very little, and if he is passing notes you cannot see the movement. However, you do observe a well of suppressed emotion in the man. His knuckles clench whilst his face remains impassive. In the empty moments between orders, his mouth droops and a wretchedness comes into his eyes. Behind that immaculate butler's facade is a broken, angry man. I can ask about the rival bridge club. Surely the most honourable bridge society of the Empire of Hands has a historian. One of the reserve players from the ape team hangs from a ceiling bar. Seeing you approach, he drops to the carpet and stands stiffly upright. "How are you?" he asks, shaping his mouth around the syllables as if sculpting clay. You ask him about the club's activities. He scratches his head. 1 soul apes learn card names. 2 soul apes play whist. 3 soul apes play bridge. He grins. 5 soul apes learn to throw cards. He extracts a boxed deck from his waistcoat pocket and lobs it across the room. It hits a Viscount's daughter on the back of the head. "I'm a 4 soul ape." You ask him specifically about the club's previous matches. He tilts his head to one side. "We come to London to play bridge." Okay. Investigate a possible shiner? A slow-eyed ape has been smoking medicinal cigarettes throughout the game. A silver case is placed rather close to one opponent. Ah, I see, using a mirror to see somebody else's cards. You draw close to the smoking monkey in the north position. She shifts in her chair and glares up at you. You linger and watch. When East picks up his cards, the reflective curved surface of the cigarette case offers a brief but clear view of his holding. The solution is straightforward. You lean and drip 3, 4 drops of wine on the shiny case. The ape roars and waves her hands. Apologizing profusely, you snatch up the case and take it for cleaning. You can have it back at the end of the match. Whoops. We can look for marked cards. As hosts, the apes have supplied the cards. Can they read the backs? A young noble knocks his wine over some cards. Mr. Gibbon strips and replaces the bays while the tournament director switches in a new deck. You thoughtfully remove the damaged deck and retire to a corner to scrutinize it. It barely takes a minute before you find markings. Little notches on the side of the cards, 1 for an ace, 2 for a king. They are invisible on a casual glance, but you can see them from a few feet away if you follow the line of the card edge. You pocket the deck and return to the suspect table. The apes do not seem to stare at their opponent's cards. It puzzles you for a moment, until you observe one young noble casually slicing his thumbnail into the edge of one of his cards. There is cheating going on here, but not by the apes. I can scrutinize the score pads. A bridge tournament depends on meticulous records. You look over the tournament director's shoulder at the score cards come in. Each side should submit a card and the scores should match. He cross-references and tallies. He focuses so intently on the numbers that he misses a major discrepancy on one card. An elegantly written record has been crudely amended to match the score on the other card. Unquestionably, the alternation was made by a different player. Also, the card has a banana stain. You offer to handle the situation. It is straightforward to track the scorecards to a nearby table. A little observation reveals that the apes have superb penmanship. One young noble There's a half-eaten banana. Oh dear. I'm starting to think that we're cheating more than the bloody apes. Let's consult the tournament director. The director has a very round head with a permanent frown. If I'd known we were playing monkeys, I would have insisted on special measures. One of them throws sandwiches at me every time my back is turned. I don't even know where he's getting them from. You compliment the man on his forbearance and ask if he has observed any cheating. My lady, it is all I can do to keep the deal accurate and the Earl halfway sober. I understand cheating is your area of expertise. No offense intended. Now if you'll excuse me, I have score pads to dry out. It's the first round of 2. You watch the games in progress. The last table breaks up. Well, let's take a break. The tournament's director signals all tables have reported, and the round is over. The competitive atmosphere dissolves into a noisy rabble as the players get up from their tables and stretch. You review what you've discovered here. Mr. Gibbon touches your elbow. If you wouldn't mind, my lady, the Empress Barbara II would like a word with you. One does not easily refuse an empress, particularly when her guards could toss you out the side doors. You enter the presence of the Empress Barbara II. A comfortable chair has been provided for you. Thank you for coming, the Empress says. Her voice is soft and careful, that of a diplomat. You are here to ensure fair play. I thought you might have questions for us. I can ask her about her reign. Surely she has some fascinating stories. The Empress looks at you for a little longer than is comfortable. Our society, its members by number of souls acquired. She steeples her hairless fingers, rings gleaming. This creates a culture of competition and humiliation, which was encouraged, even celebrated, by my predecessor. Belittlement and exploitation were his ways. She blinks, slowly, behind her gold mask. My reign is in its early years, but I have tried to lead my people beyond their insular existence. To think of more than their little collection of souls, to reach beyond their island. Will I succeed? She shrugs, a wide, expansive gesture. Still, here we are, playing bridge above London. I can ask about the ape's interest in bridge. Monkeys are exuberant. As a game, bridge seems a little stiff. A serene smile grows across the Empress's face. My Sneshel described it as a game where there was always a correct play, and if you did not make that play, you were an idiot. That appealed to my predecessor, who set up the most honourable bridge society, with its many rituals and forfeits. I have observed countless matches and might, in fact, be inclined to agree with your assessment. But it is the game favoured by your titled peers, and if we wish to play cards with them, this is the game we must learn. They have taken a long journey just to play cards with those titled peers. Why? The Empress watches you. Light glints on her gold mask. He doesn't answer. My assumption is she's here to steal their souls. So, where'd you get the bananas from? Surely these weren't imported from the surface. Ah, interesting. There is an island near the Empire named Astival. Due to some geological quirk, it lies in a sunbeam that penetrates the cavern roof. They grow wonderful foods there, sugarcane, coconut, and lately, bananas. I negotiated an exclusive trade agreement for their bananas. Please, try one. The Empress grins. Perhaps we should consider further trade to supply London with our bananas, but the price would be high. And some the seas, you can actually take over Astaval and build an empire there. It's one of the endings. I hope these answers satisfy you. Now, if you permit me, I would like to know if any of my subjects behaved improperly during the game. Yes, they did. You have undeniably recorded the evidence. Apparently I could overlook it for some consideration and compensation, but that is just not my way. The Emperor seems disappointed. Path to change is hard, she says, and our nature's difficult to overcome. She waves a hand. Her guards move to flank you. It seems this pleasant chat is over, and we're free to roam around the airship. But as we have got to the break in the play, I shall end this first episode here, and we shall talk to these monkeys in the next. Thank you all very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. Thank you again to the members of the channel and the coffee supporters. It really does mean the world to me. Please like the video if you enjoyed it, and if this is the first video you're watching in my Fallen London series, there's a huge playlist with like 200 episodes of all the loads of Fallen London stories. You should definitely go check it out. But thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.